Speaking of staying the course, we get to our last team, the Leafs. The Leafs.
Do you actually think they should stay the course?
I don't think they should stay the course. I don't moves need to be made on the back end specifically.
I want you to hold that thought. And then
Okay.
for the record, I do agree with you that they need defensemen.
Yeah,
But I know that
I'll let you lead this.
there's a very common narrative out there that the Leafs need to make significant changes. There's been suggestions that a member of their big four should be moved to add defensive help for that team.
Just say Marner. That's what everybody say. It's Marner.
It's not going to be Marner because he costs too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be Nylander if it's going to be anybody. Just accept that right now, Leafs Nation. No one's going to take an $11 million winger. Dubas shouldn't have given him that deal in the first place, and we knew it at the time.
Yeah.
It was literally a consequence of Toronto advertising him and pitching him as the face of the franchise next to Matthews, so he wanted Matthews' money, and you guys had to make a choice, and Dubas made the choice to keep him, which was the wrong dollar amount for the right choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to read a list of players to you.
Okay.
And I want you, we're going to play a game. You're going to tell me what they all have in common.
Okay.
Which means that my Zoom's going to freeze for a second while I get the list up.
Okay.
So the players on this list are Olaf Kolzig, Jose Theodore, Simeon Varlamov, Michael Neuwirth, Thomas Vokoun, and Braden Holtby.
Those are all the goaltenders that played for the Capitals in the Ovechkin era until they won the Cup.
That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all goalies that Alexander Ovechkin has at least once failed to win a Stanley Cup with as a starting goaltender.
Mm-hmm.
I realize that Holtby did eventually win one, but that's not the point.
Yeah. It took like 7 before they finally got the guy where they did it.
Yeah, and it's not like the Leafs defense is a mess. You still have Riley and Muzzin.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys still have Barry for another year, even though he played pretty bad at the end. Is he done at the end of this year?
No. Him and Cece are both UFAs, and Dermott is an RFA.
Dermott's going to get re-signed for probably 3 or 4.
He's making he made $863,000 this offseason, so
he's definitely going to be more expensive than that.
Yeah, you sign him for $2 or $3 mil.
I say 3-4 probably.
3, yeah.
But then you picked up CC as a way to manage cap situations in the Zaitsev trade.
Well, we took 1 year of CC to avoid another 6 years of Zaitsev, or 5.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. But it gets cap management. And, you don't have to keep Tyson Barrie if you don't want to, and I know that he didn't play great down the stretch.
They're
opens
not
up
going to.
Ton of space for you to manage things for your defense.
So I was going to bring this up. So Tyson Barrie, that's 2.75 off the cap, and then CC is 4.5. So you have 7.25 off with just those two. Now,
can you get a decent bottom 6 forward and a quality 5-6 defenseman for that money?
For $5 million after you take $1 million or $2 million to reinvest in Dermott?
Yeah.
And also you have...
Because that's actually what the Leafs need, if you think about it from a logical perspective. You guys have Sandin and Liljegren, so you just need another defenseman. Doesn't matter how good they are, you just need another one.
Yeah.
You need someone who's confident enough, maybe a more shut-down, grindy guy, for you to stick on the bottom line with one of the kids and say, you are our rabid dogs, go.
Yeah.
Then you need something to solidify the bottom 6. Is Spezza's contract expiring this year?
Yeah, I think they should absolutely re-sign him.
Yes, I was going to say, first things first.
100%
re-sign Spezza. I don't know what they paid him for this season.
$700,000.
He's at least making $1 million to keep playing.
Yeah.
Because he gave you a season that was worth way better than $700K. And when the playoffs came around, he was a killer.
Yeah.
Keith not moving up into the top 6 during that series against Columbus was criminal.
Yeah. He's someone who wants to play for your hockey team. Like, he was a driving force. Like, that fourth line gave Columbus a good amount of problems. Yeah.
For a couple games.
Yeah. Heck, I wouldn't even mind if they brought Kyle Clifford back because you need some sandpaper, and if not, a little bit more.
And that's the thing is, like, I think that the Leafs really just need to solidify the bottom 6.
Yeah.
Maybe pick up a piece here. Like, maybe you have to let Clifford go to make a space for a guy. I think that if you're the Leafs, I think you try to make space for Robertson. I think you really want him in the roster for next year.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so basically you have $5 million to get at least a defenseman that's somewhere in the skill level between Muzzin and Dermott. And that makes Dermott the number 4. So you have Riley, Muzzin, insert player here, Dermott, Sandin, and Liljegren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean is, like, the players that are getting shed right now are the players who are the cast-offs that will be looked back at as the fact sheet of players who couldn't get it done in Toronto.
Yeah.
Because that list of goalies that I listed to you, 5 of them are elite caliber goalies.
All-stars at least.
Sorry. And, like, at least one of them was a Hall of Famer, probably 2 of them by the time Holtby's career's over.
Yep.
Because Kolzig, I don't know if Kolzig's already in.
Kolzig's in the Hall of Fame. He got inducted like 2 or 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah. Because I remember us talking about that.
Yeah.
Because I love Ole the goalie. Anyway.
But no, like, just to give, like, I have a list of just a couple things, like even though we saw a lot of the same crap from the Leafs in that series, we saw the blown leads, we saw the inconsistency, but I, at least from my eyes, saw a better defensive effort from both Marner and Matthews, especially in those last 2 games. I saw JT get snake bitten, which I don't think will ever happen. Like, the team shot 2% in the whole series.
Because Korpisalo also played out of his mind.
Yeah.
And also, Columbus blocked twice as many shots as the Leafs in every single game. Because that is how Tortorella took a team that lost all of its star power in the offseason. I shouldn't say all of it. They still have Dubois and Jones, but you know what I mean. But they lost Panarin and Bobrovsky and Duchesne and won as many games without them as they did with them. And the reason why was Torts was like, all right, so we can't play offense, we're going to play defense.
Yep.
And, like, Keefe's only had half a season with this team. Mm-hmm. And not even a consistent half a season. I think his quote at the end of Game 3 was very boneheaded, so I understand why people are really mad at him right now.
Which one was that?
The we didn't have a plan.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a coach, you can't say that. You can say that the team didn't execute the plan, which implies that the players are at fault. But if you are the head coach of a National Hockey League team, you cannot go out there and say, we didn't have a plan. Mm-hmm. That's your job, man. So people are really mad at Keefe and want him to be fired. Tortorella came out and had a press conference today where he essentially told people to lay off Sheldon Keefe, which I thought was very funny.
Yeah.
I think you got out-coached by a coach with decades of experience, being one of the most obnoxious coaches to play against.
Yeah. And also, I think with Keefe, with a full uninterrupted season next year, takes this team up another gear. I think, like, and I said this a bunch myself, like, you see JT getting stonewalled and Marner putting up zeros on the board in a couple of games, and like, they got shut out a couple of times. Why can't this $40 million offense penetrate the stingy defense, even even Ovechkin, hands down the greatest goal scorer possibly ever the league has ever seen, had almost a decade of playoffs where he was either doing it himself or he was running into the same kind of problems. Teams with very stingy defenses could shut down the Caps because the Caps offense, before they were able to make a successful cup run, they had to go through those growing pains. It's a lot easier to play that stingy defense than to learn how to break a stingy defense. And I think that just comes with maturity.
I don't think there's any shame in losing Game 5 either, where I think the Leafs outplayed Columbus for huge swaths of the game.
Yeah.
Because we saw the year before, maybe there were some more talented players, but those are mostly offensive players with the exception of Bobrovsky. We know that Tortorella's defensive style of game can shut down elite caliber offenses and make them look foolish.
And also, Tampa got swept by this, I know they don't have Panarin and Duchesne like they did last year, but that's not what shut down Tampa's offense last year. It was their stingy defense.
Yep.
Duchesne and Panarin didn't do that. They scored the goals.
The fact that all of their forwards have bought into it too. You see your first line forwards, you see Foligno and Atkinson and Dubois blocking shots with reckless abandon.
Yeah, and Jones and Werenski being possibly the toughest pill to swallow if you're a forward. Those two guys are difficult to deal with.
And the thing is, when you get lulled into that false insecurity where you're like, okay, well, Columbus doesn't have a strong offense, you then get reminded that Pierre-Luc Dubois is an all-world caliber player and is, just waiting to finally get his due.
Mm-hmm. And also, other than the collapse in game number 3, there wasn't really a period where the Leafs looked really incompetent or that they were running all over the
first 2 periods of game 4.
The first 2 periods of game 4?
Yes.
I didn't find they even did that bad. I've seen them play way worse in their series against
the
Bruins.
No, they definitely played worse, but game 4 felt like a slow and inevitable death crawl.
Yeah, they were they played tight defensive games and were really competitive. If you're able to execute the tight defensive games against the Leafs, usually they never win those. Ever. John Shannon actually, I think it was John Shannon who had a great quote, whereas if you didn't watch the entire game and they said, oh, the score was 2-0 for the winner, they'd be like, oh, Columbus won that, because if the Leafs had won, it would have been 7-4 or something like that. It would have been a real high scoring game. But they won a bunch of really close, more defensively minded playoff games. And I think overall looked better and more consistent than any of their series against the Bruins. Definitely a lot more than their series against the Capitals.
And in game 5, too, Korpisalo was a lot of the reason why the Leafs lost.
Yeah, they outplayed them for the first 2 periods, hands down. Peppered Korpisalo with shots.
I would say even the third, because Foodie's goal was a really weird victim of happenstance. Yeah. I don't even blame Marincin for it, because it was shown on the replay that there was another Blue Jackets player coming in, so he had to make a call about whether or not to play the man or play the pass. And I still think you play the man, because I think that gives Freddie the best chance.
Or pick one. That way Freddie can commit to one or the other two, because that's how they were able to slide it underneath him, because he wasn't fully committed to his post. And I honestly think that play there, I know there's enough people ragging on Marincin, but that's where you miss Muzzin. If Muzzin is the defenseman that's gets hung out on that play, I think you have a much better result, and the goal probably doesn't go in, because I think he attacks Foodie right way and cuts off his path to the net and just defends it a lot better than an inexperienced Marincin does. And people are ragging on Freddie for another kind of soft goal at a timely time. You didn't give him any offense.
Yeah.
You didn't give him any offense to work with. And for the majority of the series, he stood on his head. He was great. There was a point in the series where he had a higher save percentage than Korpisalo or Meslurkins did. Like, I think through the first 2 games, like, he was putting up some pretty impressive numbers by himself. Now.
And it's one of those things, too, I think, in that game where if you go back and look at all of the super close call, high quality saves that Korpisalo made, the number of them that Korpisalo makes to bail Columbus out when it's 1-0 has to be like 4, 5, 6.
And half of those are to Tavares. Like, I think Tavares could have led this series with like 7 or 8 goals with the amount of chances that he had. I think there were multiple games where he had more than like 5 shots just on his own. Like, you want to talk about low shooting percentage. JT had a low shooting percentage in this series. But to bring it back to Freddie, because this is my last kind of season-ending question with the Leafs that I want to ask. You're in the last year of Freddie's contract. How do you manage that?
You re-sign him.
He's the wrong side of 30. You know his play is it's close to decline. How old is he? I think. How old is he?
Again, you'll have to look it up because I will freeze the Zoom call if I leave.
He's 30 years old. At the end of next season, he'll be 31.
You re-sign him.
If it's 2 or 3 years, yes.
I think if it's 4, yes.
But you know he's not going to ask for that. He's going to ask for 5 because he's earned it. And it's going to be a lot of money.
Well, then you might have to weigh the question, but I think that in the meantime, you don't worry about that because you are guaranteed at least one more cup run with Freddie in net.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the question you ask yourself is how close are the Leafs really? Because I don't think this year really counts. Because this is technically the Leafs being behind on their development, but again, asterisks, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you play next season and next season is relatively normal and you make it to the Eastern Conference Final or the Stanley Cup Final with Freddie in net and his stats hold up, then you have to ask yourself the question. Elite goalies can stay elite for a long time. Pecorine is still elite in his mid-30s. Luongo was still elite until he was almost 40.
Yeah.
Now, I realize Luongo is like a Hall of Fame, all-world caliber talent, but
I think Dubas's job there, if you decide to try and re-sign him, is you try to get him on the shortest deal you can. I think 3. If you could sign Freddie for 3 years at what's he make now? What's he make right now? He makes $5 million. So he'll probably want 6.5 or 7.
the problem is if you want to get him to a shorter contract, you have to give him a bigger number.
Mm-hmm. 3 years, 3 years at 7 million?
No, I would never go for it.
No, have to give him 4.
I think you might be able to get 4 at 7, maybe 4 at 8. Because the problem is that everybody under the sun is going to offer Freddie 5 times 7 or 5 times 8 while taking an afternoon nap.
Yeah.
Because a goalie doesn't get bad until his late 30s, assuming he's actually an elite goalie, which I think we can all agree Anderson is.
Yeah, 100%. Where are the Leafs without him these last couple of... Well, you could see it. They didn't have a backup goalie. Like, they didn't win a game without him until like a third of the season was over. Yeah. Dubas has to be smart with that negotiation, though.
Also, find him a decent backup so the man doesn't have to play 70 games a year.
Well, you got Jack Campbell, and Jack Campbell is on next year as well. So you have Jack Campbell for all
probably
next.
fine.
That's fine. At 1.65 for Jack Campbell, I think that's fine.
That's fine.
I think he'll be okay. I think we can run with that right now. But yeah. Other than that, like, it's frustrating, and even the overzealous takes, this is a frustrated fan base, has been for a long time. But I was expecting after, like, game 4 to be the, like, oh, false hope, look at our big boys are finally turning it on, and then we have, like, the 5-1 loss to Boston last year. But in this final game, even though the team didn't play the best, they didn't look like they completely gave up, were dejected, and, like, just completely crapped all over themselves. Like,
in my opinion, they lost a 1-0 game, 5 or 3-0.
3-0. Yeah, exactly. That's how it looked, which I'll take over the last couple years, honestly.
Because Foodie's goal is an absolute fluke. I think that, like, 99 times out of 100 he doesn't score. Mm-hmm. Even with Marincin making a bad half decision, which I don't even think was the worst decision, because he did cut off the passing lane to an extent. I think the Leafs just need to be patient, which sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Because, like, Tavares is the oldest of your core at what, 30?
I think so, yeah.
Because, like, Willie's in his mid-20s, Marner's in his early 20s, Matthews is in his early 20s.
Yeah, I think Matthews is the youngest out of the 4 of them.
Yeah. And then, like, even if you look at the rest of your roster, like, Mikheyev's not that old, neither is Hyman.
Yeah.
Like, your cup window is, like, what, 6 years?
5. I think it's 5 that we have before one of the big 4 contracts is up. I think it's 4 or 5 years before one of them comes up, and I think it's Austin's might be first or Willie's might be first. Either way. Like, you still have time. Like, but you got to address the D. You got to rethink it. You need, because
the pieces are there. It's like I'm saying. It's like I was saying about the Capitals. It's about just finding the right puzzle pieces that will fit in and elevate your guys. All you need right now is to find a partner who can elevate Dermott. It doesn't even have to be the best defenseman available, because I think that the team is at a point now where what's missing from the team to get them over the hump isn't skill. I think skill is fine. Because if you told me that the top 3 defensemen on our roster were Morgan Rielly, Jake Muzzin, and Dermott, whose first name I don't remember right now all of a sudden, I think that defense unit's probably okay.
Yeah.
It's about chemistry now.
And also, don't, like, whoever you get, Dubas, whoever you get, if you get 1 guy, if you get 2 guys, if you get 3 guys, don't saddle Rielly with a boat anchor like Ceci. Let him play with Muzzin. Let him play with Dermott or Sandin or somebody good.
That's not Dubas's choice, though. That's Keefe's choice.
Well, I think the only reason why Cody Ceci stayed in the lineup is because it's hard to have $4.5 million of your cap sitting on your bench or only playing 5 minutes.
I don't buy into that, because I think that if Ceci had been your 5-6, one of your, like, bottom pair defensemen, the argument would have been made that you guys were paying him too much money, but at least he's a roster player.
Yeah, that's true. He could have moved him down the lineup, and that probably would have helped.